Is it possible to retire early when your income is only average or below average? Hello everyone, welcome to WeFire. I'm your host Jenny, and today we'll be looking at some very interesting Reddit posts, and more specifically, a subreddit called r/povertyfire. If you're willing to do anything to lower your expenses, how much money do you need to achieve FIRE? And what will your lifestyle look like in retirement with such a tight budget? People who have actually poverty fired, what's your story? I've seen plenty of posts from people who retired with $1 million+ nest egg and or a pension of some sort over in the Lean Fire subreddit. I'd like to hear from people who are currently retired, but who are living on far less. Not plans to do so in the future, but are actually living the poverty fire life right now. Some things I'd like to hear about. How long have you been fired? What's your budget? And net worth if you're comfortable sharing. How old are you? What does your day-to-day look like? Are you happy with your life / glad you pulled the trigger? Looking forward to your responses. It can be hard to imagine people living well when they don't have that much saved up, but that's the honest reality of millions of retirees around the world. This subreddit may be called r/povertyfire, but I'm willing to bet the kind of situation OP talked about is very, very common. I'll answer, but it's not me. It's my parents. They poverty fired when they were in their 40s. I don't have all the specifics, but I know they had less than $150,000, and that their annual budget was $7,000. They're super introverted, so their expenses are only food, utilities, and rent. They also benefit from being low income and qualifying for Obamacare. They're fortunate enough to live in an apartment building owned by my aunt, so their rent has never gone up. 15 years later, and one has qualified for a small pension from a city job. They also live in Mexico half the year a couple years, which greatly reduce their expenses. I find their life boring, but they love it. They just drink coffee and listen to music all day and read the newspaper. It's easy to not need money when you don't spend any. You know, some people just have inexpensive hobbies. They like to go on walks, read the newspaper, and it sounds like your personality matters too. If you're bored being inside all day and not seeing your friends, it's much harder to keep your expenses down. But if you're a natural introvert, that kind of thing is much easier for you. I'm 61. I describe myself as semi-retired. Mostly I lie in bed and Reddit all day. My car accident was 6 years ago, and I'm mostly better now, but I can't really go back to working in warehouses. I have a bunch of side hustles, like I'm about to go do plasma for $100. My mental health is such that trying to be a lawyer for money would be a mistake. I like my lazy, shiftless lifestyle. Net worth, just above $100,000. That's roughly equal parts the house, 25 shares Tesla, an oil lease in Texas, and everything else. I will probably have a large inheritance within a few years if I live that long. My cost of living, in the hood in the Rust Belt Midwest, is very low. My shack is paid for. Bank repo 10 years ago, paid almost nothing. I know how to scrounge for food for free. I have lived a grad student lifestyle my whole life. I'd rather read a book than vacation in Cancun. No boss, no tie, no alarm, no worries. Oh wow, that is wild. I'm sorry to hear about your car accident, but also glad that you seem to be happy overall. So you were a lawyer? I am. Had a mental breakdown in 2018. The career is toxic and brutal. I'm still lawyering, but with the government, so that's helped to keep the crazy at bay, but I'm over it. And I'm just tired of the deadlines and constantly answering for everything I do. I have about $180,000 saved, including what's in my pension. It's a fucking struggle to not walk out every day. Anywho, you inspire me. Yes, I'm still licensed, but after nervous breakdown 2001 and 2005, it's more responsible for me to not try to practice, at least for a living. I do a bit of pro bono now and then, and have weekly Zoom meeting with other lawyers with issues. What's really interesting to me is that this person obviously knew what it's like to make a lot of money, but decided it's not at all worth it. The grass is always greener on the other side. Sometimes, it's okay to just sit back and relax. This person is 61. They work side hustles and they still do lawyer work sometimes. It's sad that they got into an accident, but it sounds like their life is pretty great now. I will try to keep this short. Single female, 61, introvert. Worked all my life. Never made a lot of money. I quit my job in August 2021 after 13 years. Hated it. My reasoning behind taking this action. I was bringing home $1,600 a month working full-time at a job I hated. So I did the math. I was due a small pension from a previous job that I could request at 60, and I did that. I am going to take my Social Security at the end of this year at 62. Social Security plus pension equals $1,500. Why work a job that I hate for $100 more per month? I took a leap of faith, and for the last 6 months, I have been doing exactly what I want to do, and it feels great. It's really important to sit down and actually calculate the amount you can get from Social Security, your pension, and your savings. You might be surprised how much you actually have. The first step to financial independence is understanding. And when you run the numbers, you might find that you're closer to financial independence than you thought. Hey there, I think I fit the bill. I haven't made any posts about it yet because I want to see how I make it through the first year or two before I recommend it to anyone else. First off, I spend most of the time traveling because I enjoy it, and because it's cheaper than living in NYC where I hail from. Also, I would not be able to do this without family back in NYC that have a place I could stay when I visit. I come back a few times a year to take care of different things, collect certain medications, supplements, paperwork, credit card applications, etc., and to visit. I do long travel, staying in each place at least a month to lower costs, and though I used to take more expensive short trips, I find now that I'm actually fired, I don't feel the need to do all the tourist things. In fact, I barely do any tourism at all. Mostly, I just enjoy walking around the city, going to local markets, and walking in the green spaces, riding the different metros and seeing where things take me. Simple adventure. I have a lot of food intolerances because of a medical condition, so I have to cook all my own food anyway. And it's very cheap stuff too. Mostly legumes and vegetables. A lot of potatoes, lentils, beans, peas, etc., and vegetables like beets, celery, zucchini, cucumber, carrot, cabbage, which really do seem to be very cheap no matter where I go. I'm sure you guys could do a lot better / cheaper for accommodation, as I just stay in Airbnbs, which are almost at least twice as expensive as local rent. If you guys were to do true expat fire and stay in one place, you could get truly cheap accommodations. Mostly, I've just been trying to stay at about $1,200 a month, and managing it so far. But like I said, I only fired recently, back in August, so I don't want to act like I have it all sorted out yet. I never had a high-paying job. I stayed with roommates in a shit apartment while I socked away as much money as I could, and benefited from a great market we've had in the last decade. Not that I've been investing that long. I'm 29. Oh boy, that's young. I'm 29 and fired with about $370,000, $350,000 in investments, and $21,000 in cash, which is about as poverty fire as I'm willing to go, especially with my traveling lifestyle. I know it's definitely not safe, but with my chronic health disorder, I don't have much of a choice. Working was making me very sick. Would have been nice to have more of a traditional 1 million fire retirement, but so far, my retirement seems very blessed. Feel free to ask any questions, and good luck to everyone on the journey. Now, this is a particularly interesting case. This person's 29, so very young. They have mast cell activation syndrome, which they mentioned in a comment, and it limits what food they can eat, and they travel a lot. It's so interesting to see just how far $350,000 can stretch. It's kind of risky, but it sounds like they're making it work, and they have family to support them, which is good. Let's look at a different story, this time from someone who made an entire post explaining their plan for retirement. My off-grid plan for poverty fire. So far, I have purchased 10 acres of land, 45 miles outside of a city, and 13 miles from a small town, with all the amenities I need. My plan is to go as R/off-grid as I can. For electricity, I am planning a solar/battery system and a backup propane generator. For water, I have a small creek where I am installing a ram pump. I use a Berkey water filter to take care of any biological contamination. I will also be putting a small rainwater catchment system for redundancy. For transport, right now I use my electric bike for most of my trips, and I think I can make that my sole mode of transport that I own once the kids are moved out. This guy has kids. And I am out of the city fully. The nearby town does have car/truck rentals for about $30 a day if I really need it, but the country also has fare-free transit services. USPS, UPS, FedEx I'll service the area I am in so I can get most items I need delivered. For shelter, the country allows you to live in yurts full-time without any permits, and as long as the yurt deck is less than 30 inches above grade, you don't need any building permit. They also allow for composting toilets, so I do not need any sort of septic system. I will have a wood stove for heating and cooking, with a propane backup. For food, I've been gardening for years, and also have been keeping chickens and bees for almost as long. I would probably add rabbits into the mix, so I hope to be able to grow at least 75% of my food. I'll be buying oatmeal, rice, beans, and some other staples, so I'm hoping to keep food/animal feed costs to about $100 per month. For internet, I'm going to rely on an unlimited data plan on my phone. The county also offers free Wi-Fi at various sites around the county, and the library has great free internet also. For healthcare, I live in a Medicaid expansion state. So long as that does not go away, then as long as I make under 133% of the poverty level, then I get free healthcare. So here's their monthly cost breakdown. Property taxes, $50, cell phone, $50, propane, $50, food/animal feed, $100, insurance, $50, maintenance, $100, miscellaneous, $100. I expect my initial setup cost to be around $100,000. So pretty expensive. And my ongoing estimated costs are $500 per month or $6,000 per year. So once I am all set up, I can get by on having a $150,000 nest egg, but I am aiming for closer to $250,000 just to have wiggle room. This is really something else. I know we all joke about returning to monk and leaving civilization to go live in a yurt, but man, it sounds like this guy is actually going to do it. And it sounds like his plan is very environmentally friendly too. He's really living in tandem with nature, like raising his own food. Everything's like, he's thought it out pretty thoroughly. $100,000 to set everything up is expensive as heck though. But, you know, if you're gonna be able to lower your monthly expense to only $500, that's in a way a great investment. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is how this will look when you're in your senior years, because it sounds like this is a sort of labor-intensive plan, but, you know, maybe he already has some plans in place for that. This is similar to my setup living aboard a boat. Solar on board, generator at my 10 by 30 shop on shore. Food costs are low because I eat a lot of canned stuff and crackers. The poverty level bit is sort of cool. You can do enough taxable work in town to cover the costs of things that you can't grow or produce on your own property and still be able to get Medicare. Possibly even have some left over for saving or investing. A word about transportation. My main mode of transportation is a 50cc scooter. There is no maintenance on it other than occasional repairs or new tires every 5 or so years, and a single tank, 1 gallon of gas, will take you 30 miles to town and back twice, and still allow for some riding around town. Being 50cc or less, most states don't require insurance, just registration and a valid license. Added bonus of scooters is cargo space, both inside and the under-seat trunk between your feet. Sorry for coming off as a scooter salesman, but for efficient, low-maintenance transport, they can't be beat. The first dream was to live on a boat, but the wife vetoed that, so living in a yurt in the woods is the next best option. I actually have a 50cc scooter in the garage right now, but I have not ridden it in years. I have too much fun on my electric bike. But now that you mention it, that might be a good backup option. So I'll have to go dust it off and make sure it is in good working order. If you don't mind the sun or the rocking, retiring on a boat is a really cool idea. Eating a bunch of canned foods and crackers might not be too healthy for you though. See, this person agrees with me. That's all cool, but eat better, man. You have one body. Fuel it right. Thanks for the great advice. Also, can I just say, OP has a wife? He mentioned he had kids, but for some reason it didn't really register that this guy is married with a whole ass family. That's really cool though, that OP and his wife seem like they're on the same page, and his family's being taken care of. Just because you have a family doesn't mean you can't go live in a yurt in the woods, I suppose. I did this for 2 years. The biggest issue for me was an inability to afford the millions of projects I want to do on the land, and affording vehicle repairs. If you can get your electric bike a large cargo cart, that would be helpful in obtaining supplies. See, this is why the other person recommended a scooter. If you had a scooter, you have cargo space. Maybe the scooter is a good idea. Networking will also be essential to finding help and supplies for very cheap for free. Also, learn to barter for assistance and other items you may need for a project. I would trade dead trees for help. Out in the woods, a dry old tree is like cash money, if everybody heats with wood. It sounds like this person went into the woods with a lot of projects in mind. It might be a bit different from the OP though, who seems like he just wants to retire. Also, it sounds like this lifestyle is difficult to keep up. This person did it for 2 years, and I'm guessing they don't live that way anymore. They bring up a good point though about the repairs. Like, what happens if the solar/battery system needs to be fixed? Or something goes wrong with the filtration system? Or the electric bike? Ah, scooter. Then he'll have the scooter backup. But what if they both break down, right? And in the meanwhile, when, let's say, your filtration system isn't working, then you just don't have any clean water, and that would be not very cool. Minimum to not die. 32, and I can't take life right now. Thinking of a way to fire as soon as possible. I'm contemplating living in a literal hole or on empty land. Anything to avoid this rat race. Is this plan possible? Use VA for health benefits as primary health insurance for life, buy empty land with VA loan, or buy a house and rent out rooms. Fire at about 38. I have no desire to spend any money, go on trips, or do literally anything beside eat some carrots and play video games. My favorite activity is going to the library or talking on the phone with friends. I'd rather live a miserly existence than be in this rat race any longer than I need to. I think $120,000 will pretty much buy you groceries in perpetuity. Add whatever cheap housing needs you can tolerate onto that. Maybe you can survive in a van or in Turkey where rent is $300 a month. I don't know you. That would be another $100,000 to fund either of those perpetually. So $220,000 in total. More expensive $1,500 rent would be 5x that. You'd need $600,000 to have it plus the groceries handled. Based on this post though, I would budget for therapy. I am also alienated and disgusted by the rat race, as you describe it, but I'm not having this dramatic of a reaction to it. Your body and basic desires/ambitions shutting down are beyond normal burnout, and deep into clinical depression territory that we can't help you with. Yes, I am going to therapy. I just don't think it will work. I have about $270,000 in the bank right now, so there's that. No clue what to do with it, since I can't live off that or sustain a job, currently hiding out at my parents' house. Thanks. Well, in theory, $220,000 would keep you alive. Let's look at the next comment. Phew, those last few paragraphs seemed unnecessarily harsh and condescending. People have a right to feel how they feel and process them accordingly, without being judged as lesser than for being in a different state of mind, or having different support needs. OP isn't that bad off, considering he has $250,000 saved, enjoys a healthy snack, has a fun hobby as a gamer, friends he likes chatting with, is actively working to improve himself and thinking of ideas to earn a living that will be more fulfilling. He has parents who love him, at least enough to allow him to stay with them while he gets back on his feet. OP, there's a lot to be thankful for here. Part-time remote work would be a great option to start stacking and saving more money, if you can stomach it. Therapy is good, but sometimes talking about negative things keeps you in a perpetual cycle of negativity. Just be mindful of how therapy makes you feel. Being a landlord, dog breeding? Investing in index funds are easy ways to bring in more income. I never heard dog breeding brought up as a potential way to earn passive income, but sure, okay. We can go try and breed some dogs. Volunteering, going for walks or hikes outside, and lifting weights are great for improving your overall well-being. Also, if you're a believer, consider adding prayer to your daily routine. I'll be praying for you. Hang in there. Troubles don't last always. This is a nice comment section. It sounds like all these people mean really well. And since OP already has $270,000, it sounds like they have enough for shelter and food forever. It won't be the nicest retirement, but it's nice to know that's an option. My minimum each month is about $1,100, mortgage, utilities, and groceries, and I live in a standard, but old, 2-bedroom house in West Virginia. Good luck to ya. House hacking would save me more money if I could tolerate roommates, haha. Or seasonal work that provides housing if I could tolerate the uncertainty of it. Nice, those are very low expense numbers. Here in NYC boroughs, spending $40,000 a year feels frugal. Yeah, there's definitely a massive difference in living expenses across the US. If you're living someplace rural along the Rust Belt, $70,000 a year is a great income. But if you're living in NYC or Silicon Valley, you'll have almost nothing left after paying rent. And I also want to acknowledge that it's great that the commenter here has mentioned that he would house hack if he could stand roommates, or he'd do seasonal work if he can tolerate the uncertainty of it. Like, you don't have to do all the things. You don't need to follow every advice on how to save money. Like, do what works for you, you know? If you hate having roommates, it's okay, don't have roommates. You said in a comment that you have $270,000 in the bank. Put it in a Vanguard index fund. 4% of $270,000 is $10,800. That's the 4% rule. That's $900 you can take out each month. In the Philippines, a single person's monthly expenses is estimated to be $561. $561? Plus rent? For a whole month? Okay. Source Numio.com. I don't know, everyone in the expat sub keeps saying $1,000 is not enough. I don't know what to believe. In my experience, a lot of expats to more exotic areas wants to live like tourists. And sure, if you go on guided trips weekly, eat out on fancy restaurants instead of buying a sack of rice, get massages daily, and go clubbing instead of reading a book, it will add up. It sounds like if you're really looking for the minimum to not die number, going to another country where the currency is weaker and living a frugal life there will save you ridiculous amounts of money. The problem, of course, is that you'll have to uproot your entire life, leave everyone you know, and deal with an entirely new culture, even new language. You'll definitely, 100%, save a lot of money, but it's not for everybody. Let's leave r/povertyfire for a moment and take a look at a much bigger subreddit, r/personalfinance, and see what they have to say. Is there such a thing as personal finance for poor people? Just curiously, all the personal finance books and information out there seems to be geared towards middle class and upper class people. Is there anything out there that is geared towards actually helping someone who is poor and in a broken home, no support, to become stable? It would cover the same principles, but use examples more relevant to poor people. For instance, assume you have $500 to put down on a car, a decent job, but no support if your car breaks down. Should you buy used or new? I figure the bulk of the lessons would be about personal finance in the light of risk management. It's the reality that personal finance advice is geared towards people with money. It's unfortunate, since those with no money are arguably most in need of personal finance information. Nothing I've ever heard of. I've tried to browse this sub and wiki and apply what's here to what's relevant to me, while filtering out what's not. Granted, I'm almost out of the will I be able to eat tonight phase and into the maybe I can afford a nightstand phase. Edit. I'm gonna hijack my own comment to elaborate on a point I made elsewhere in this thread. That's the kind of advice people could use more of. We don't say get a 401k. We say try for an index fund that approximate the total stock market with an allocation of 120 minus your age, percent stocks, and the rest bonds. Within your stock allocation, try for 70% domestic US stocks and 30% international. And here's several examples of fund combinations to use. But when it comes to poor people, we say get a better job and apply for government assistance. It's not terribly helpful. Recommend obtaining a milk crate from a grocery store trash, or wooden spool from factory trash for a free nightstand if you're still in the eating is expensive and hard phase. I still have my looted spools, now serving as outdoor furniture. I had permission to take them. Also, check apartment trash around the beginning and end of a month, especially in university residences near the end of a school year. Wealthy international students throw out a lot of nearly new furniture. I have a lot of free scavenged furniture I'm still using, even though I'm out of the maybe I can eat phase. It's true that traditional personal finance advice doesn't really apply, but there are still some unconventional things that can be done. The advice for free furniture is great. I'm definitely going to get all my furniture from scavenging, or Facebook Marketplace, or freebie alerts. It's an app where you can get free stuff. Maybe check it out, once I get my own place. Personal finance at this level is much more relevant if you look in r/frugal. At this level, advice is like, milk crates with an old tablecloth are a perfectly adequate nightstand. Add an old pillow, it's a decent chair. Also, advice at this level is, you don't need a high-end smartphone. Cars are stupid expensive, and you should seriously consider avoiding them. Do not take loans of any kind when you're living day to day. At the will I be able to eat tonight level, it's more like, food banks are your friend. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Seek out services that can provide basic necessities, especially if you have kids. They will be generous. Continue to look for new/better jobs and careers. Maybe some links to free mental health resources? A lot of the responses to this comment argue that a car and a good phone are necessary, and I agree there. You can't really get around modern life without at least a fully equipped smartphone with internet. You can certainly consider getting them secondhand though, or at least get an older model phone. Cars will definitely have to be secondhand. Just keep your eyes peeled for the ones with serious problems. I'm not sure that there is, but I would imagine the first step for anyone looking to improve their financial situation would be to track their expenses down to the penny, and create a realistic budget in order to build savings/eliminate debt. This was exhausting and depressing when my husband and I were barely eating in order to pay our bills. I'd scrape pennies at the grocery store with coupons and sales and used a $1.50 in savings to buy the crappy store brand Oreo cookies because there was so little else in our lives to look forward to at the time. Nothing really helped except him lucking into a better paying job. Amen. It's impossible to practice most of the things in personal finance when you don't have surplus money in the first place. Yeah, great, I've tracked all my spending, and I'm fucked. I knew that already, but now I know just exactly how fucked I really am. We always assume people must have surplus money if they paid more attention, but, sometimes that's just not the case. If you're not super aware of your expenses, then tracking money definitely helps. But if you're at the level of, will I be able to eat tonight? Then a bad job with budgeting probably isn't your problem. The only thing that will permanently improve your situation would be to move somewhere cheaper, work more hours, or work better jobs. It's so fucking expensive being poor. I grew up poor, and there isn't an easy way to improve yourself out of it. You're so busy putting out fires that planning is a laughable exercise. Here's the best advice I have. 1. Education is the way out. Even better if you can move to a high cost of living area as a college student, because getting into one later is far harder. 2. I don't have time to fix it right, but I have time to fix it again. Sound familiar? Fix things right. It'll save you time and money later. Pissing away money on short-term fixes is the bigger hurdle. 3. Act better than your job. It's how you get promoted. If you're taking full advantage of the behavioral flexibility afforded by a minimum wage job, knock it off. Stop telling rude jokes, shitting on customers, complaining loudly that your boss is annoying, etc. The way to a better job is to act like you belong in a better job. 4. Hang out with people who you aspire to be like. This is difficult, but people do not like social disruptions, and poor people don't always enjoy watching a friend surpass them and escape. It can become toxic even. Find people that truly want to see you succeed, then build up your reputation with them so they will help you succeed when you need it. This requires trust, and my previous points are how you build the trust needed with this group of people. It's hard to address because poverty is as much a lifestyle as it is finances. Because being poor forces you to always choose between bad options. Getting a break almost never happens. I'm related to people who are still stuck there, and it's unlikely they will ever get out. But they've burned me so many times that I'm no longer willing to help. My relationship with them is now to keep enough distance so that I'm not collateral damage. This is good stuff, especially number 3. I'm doing some digging or climbing myself, and that strategy has been useful. I grew up extremely poor, and I like to say that poverty has a kind of gravity that's really tough to escape. Most don't want to admit it, but there is an element of luck involved. I have watched people try really, really hard and still not reach escape velocity. Right, I agree with this comment. These tips aren't guaranteed to work, and luck is definitely a big part of it, but at the same time, it's definitely worth a try. If nothing else, fixing things right and pursuing an education won't make your situation worse. If you're in a situation like this, just know that even though you deserve better, no one will give it to you until you demand it. Let's look at one last post. This one's from r/povertyfinance, a different subreddit. Following both this subreddit and the general personal finance one is wild. I'll see one post talking about whether someone can afford a house and child at $360,000 income a year, and the very next one will be asking for advice on how to afford groceries. 2 different worlds. It sounds like OP from before, who was asking about personal finance for poor people, would probably get better advice on r/povertyfinance. I know all kinds of people. I know a few people that barely make any money that have a house. I know a guy that makes $2,000 a week that is broke all the time. I feel like I don't know what counts as good income. Like, people making $80,000 a year be bragging, saying they have it good, and people making $150,000 saying they struggling. Location is a key factor here. Location definitely matters, but at $2,000 a week, that's definitely a budgeting issue going on. That sounds like a person who would really benefit from tracking their expenses closely. I tried to explain this before here and got a bit of hate. I'll avoid it this time and just say that perspective matters. People that did not grow up poor simply cannot understand your perspective. They cannot. I grew up poor. My kids grew up well off. What's normal to them seems out of this world to a lot of other people, myself included. I have to admit to be one of those kids. My parents don't really like me talking about this, but, full transparency, I am kind of one of those kids. It's not that I live a life of extravagance. I'd say I live a fairly normal middle-class life, but my parents, they experienced a lot of poverty growing up, and it's definitely affected them in the way that we interact. But, I try to be understanding, but sometimes I just kind of can't see things from their perspective. They'll be like, don't throw that out. There's still a bit of dishwasher soap left in it. And I'm just thinking, the effort it would take to fish that out and use it is not worth, it just seems they would get upset with me for inconsequential things. But, it was not inconsequential to them growing up. And, I try to be more mindful of that now that I'm older. Okay, back to reading comments. This is so true. I grew up so incredibly poor. I don't think my husband can comprehend things like not having food some days, and I could not comprehend, at first, having money in our bank account. I was so poor growing up, any money had to pay something. Maybe if there was $10 left, we got McDonald's. When I first met my husband, he was like, "What do you mean you have $0? You have a job." This is why having $1,000 left a month gives me anxiety. Like, I have to spend it, even though I'm over 10K in debt. I can definitely imagine how if you go your entire life with basically no money in a state of anxiety and panic almost about not having enough money for food, that, once you do start making some money, you develop some really bad habits. Like, for example, not feeling like it's right that you have extra money in the bank account. But those are good things to do financially, to have $1,000 set aside in case of emergency. Well, those are all the posts I have for you today. Sorry to end on a bit of a sour note. I hope you found this video interesting. I had a lot of fun making it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.